What's going on, champs and champettes? It's FireMonkey here, and I know, you've heard a million things a million times regarding the whole entire racing mode coming to Fortnite, regarding all this type of stuff, and throughout all the times you've heard it and everything, you hear the same bit of news regurgitated over and over and over and over again, to the point where it might get annoying, and in some cases it might actually be hard to follow the narrative and figure out what is actually going on with Fortnite's racing mode, which is why in today's video, I've gone ahead and late at night, because it's currently 1 a.m. when I'm recording this video, and compiled all of the information regarding this mode, including information that other people haven't really been too interested in mentioning, so that you can get the ultimate bit of information from today's YouTube video. So most of this video is actually not going to be us playing Fortnite, as you can see right here, but instead it's going to be related to us looking over at my Twitter feed and talking about things there. However, before we do that, let me go ahead and get some things out of the way right now that I don't have any images or tweets to show you guys. So firstly, the main thing I want to talk about here is the tabs at the top. Of course, at the top right now we have the Battle Pass tab, the Quest tab, the Compete tab, the Locker tab, all that type of stuff. However, in the future there will be a Garage tab actually added up here, which will allow you to customize your vehicle you use in this racing mode, and there are even rumors and leaks going around that there will be a Battle Pass specific for the Del Mar racing mode that will allow you to unlock new customizable parts for your vehicle in that upcoming mode, right? So keep in mind, I don't have any images of the Garage tab, I don't have any images of what's going on with the Battle Pass, for the whole entire Del Mar mode, but I have a lot of other news to talk about regarding this mode, so let's go ahead and start it off by showing my Twitter feed and seeing right here where it mentions that Fortnite's racing mode, aka Del Mar, was last updated September 18th, which as the time recording this video was around 6 to 7 days ago, so yeah, they've been working on this even as early as this week or last week, and they've been trying to craft it together to make sure it's a wonderful experience for all of us once it originally releases. However, the oldest playlist date goes all the way back to October 30th of 2022. Now, for those who don't understand what this means, that means that the Del Mar racing mode has been worked on since we were in Chapter 3 Season 4, and keep in mind, we are in Chapter 4 Season 4 right now, about to go to Chapter 4 Season 5 very soon, so this mode has been worked on for over a chapter now, right? This mode has been in the works for a long time, over a year at this point, and we only started getting leaks originally about the death race for this mode back in February of this year. So this means that whatever they've been crafting together and stuff, it has been going on for quite some time, and they're continuing to test stuff, update stuff, and they plan to release it according to leaks and everything with the launch of Chapter 5 Season 1, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see how all this comes together when the mode actually releases. Next up, we have to talk about some slight bits of information that I saw that I didn't really notice anyone who was leaking the mode before or anything mentioning. Some things that were pretty interesting to me, at least, was that Time Trials features a leaderboard which will allow you to compete for the fastest time possible. I'm unsure if this is a global leaderboard or if it's a friends only leaderboard. However, seeing as other things we had in the past that were leaderboard systems, such as the in-game career tab, which we can actually go back to real quickly, and we can go over here and go to, actually it's not even here, where is it? I don't even remember, right? But there used to be, or at least I'm pretty sure there is, yeah, it's the profile tab, here we go. This area where you're able to actually go and see how many wins you got in solos, duos, squads, even in LTMs and everything else, and you could compare with all of your friends, right? And then of course there was the global leaderboard, which actually I didn't even notice was here, but it always felt kind of finicky, because as you can see here in the actual scoreboard for normal, you have like Jojo Josiah with 1.8 million points here. However, in global wins, I actually, now that I'm looking, this is score, this is global win, so it all looks like it's working now that I'm actually looking at it, but it's always been something that, has been worked on and everything else, so I expect something similar to actually show up in game once everything's, ready and once the mode's released. And I mean, even in the collection menu, in the augments area and even in the characters area, it's not here in characters anymore, but you used to be able to see the progress between you and all of your friends, so you would have a lot of little triangle dots all over the place to show who was the most collected on their augments or in their fish collection book and everything else. So it is something that they have been working on for a while, and it does make sense for that to be a thing that is enabled in this. However, I would just, kind of lower your expectations. Don't expect a global leaderboard right away, but instead just keep your eyes out for something that'll be similar to, a friends-only leaderboard. Next up is something that I didn't see too many people actually mention either, was the fact that Epic Games can make it so when you select a playlist, they can make it so the maps either play in a random order, or they can specify a specific order for the maps to play in. So for example, we have like 10 bronze tracks that actually exist. If they wanted you to play instead of like bronze 10, then 3, then 4, then 7, they wanted you to play in a specific order, they could set it up so it makes you go through bronze 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, all the way up to 10 in the very, very specific order that they want. And I think that is an interesting thing to see, because it means that if we somehow get this mode super popular to the point where in the future it has official tournaments with money prizes and everything else, they can make it so there's a specific set list of maps that people will know ahead of time, so they know what to practice on in order to, you know, make sure they get all the shortcuts or whatever figured out on those specific maps, so that they can win at the fastest time possible in that racing mode, right? And then the third thing is that Epic Games can force players to the game lobby when they complete a race. What this means is right when you complete the race, they can make it so it either shows the leaderboard and stuff like that, you know, it's like congratulations, you did it, or if you were doing something like a tutorial, they can instantly just kind of boot you back to the lobby seamlessly. You know, it's like, hey, you completed it, and then maybe like a 5-second countdown or whatever, and then it will just plop you back in the lobby without you leaving or anything like that. So it is interesting to see how they can kind of manage that whole entire system, and how if they wanted to, they can force players to the game lobby. Now there is another option I saw there that I didn't really know how to include in these tweets, which was the fact that they can show you the game lobby. I don't know how that's going to work, because one forces you back to it, the other one just shows you it, but it doesn't force you into it or something, which makes me wonder if the show game lobby button is going to be something where it's an actual clickable thing that returns you back to that area, or if somehow the game lobby is going to be built into the racing mode. That isn't all, however, because if we go to the next thing, you can see that when you select one of the Fortnite Racing Mode playlists, it will change your lobby background. Currently, it uses the Season 19 background as a placeholder. Of course, I don't remember the exact chapter season number, but it uses this as a placeholder for everything going on there. So imagine it like this. You have the normal current season background. Right when you click on one of the racing modes, it will change your background to whatever they have as the actual background image. So for example, right now, it would change your background to this image, but once they add an official image, it will change it to that. It won't change any like props in the lobby or anything like that, at least in this current state. It will just change the image behind you, but it is a nice way to continue evolving the system over time, and to continue making it so that you're able to kind of have this seamless switch to feel like you're in a different lobby, when at the same time you're still on that same flat metallic plate, you know, with the 4 little V-Buck symbols on the ground. After that, though, we get into the actual modes themselves, and it starts off with the Death Race mode. Currently, not much is known about this mode except for the placeholder icon below, which is a triangle, but it was created back on November 23rd, 2022, and this was the first leak we ever had about Del Mar and the whole entire racing mode, right? Death Race was the first leak we ever got, all the way back in February of this year. So, you know, there was a decent amount of time when this ID existed, right? This playlist was out there, anyone can kind of search it up if they knew the ID, which of course back then we didn't, and they would have been brought to, you know, some of the information. This image right here is actually a newer one, so it's nothing that was there originally back in November, but it does show that they've been working on this for a super long time, and they do plan to kind of release different modes for the racing mode itself as kind of like subgenres. As we know, there's going to be unranked, there's going to be competitive, there's going to be death race, and there's even going to be a mode specifically for time trials, so it seems like it's not just going to be like one generic racing mode, right? It's a whole entire set of different modes for you to enjoy. Now, next up, we're going to go in a little bit of more of a technical area. As you can see down here, we got a lot of IDs and stuff. Ignore that. The main thing you need to focus on down here is that this placeholder star icon is the star icon for time trials, right? So as you know, the triangle is for death race. This is the time trial icon that you got to keep in mind. So they're working on a whole entire time trial system with multiple maps being tested, being Ouroboros, Sidewinder, Olympus, Apollo, Driftmania, Easy 3, Rally, Sidewinder, which I accidentally put on the list twice, my apologies there, Snap, Sweet Jumps, Turbine, Cruise, Infinity, Facade, and Jackrabbit. All of those modes are actually being worked on right now and being, you know, kind of implemented and perfected for this upcoming time trial system. So it's not like every single map out there will have a time trial for it. It appears that they're only going to have a set list of maps that you'll be able to select in order to complete the time trials on there for the best time. But they do have a pretty decent selection of, if we don't include the second Sidewinder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different maps. Now, of course, it has 4 different playlists. We have the main Del Mar time trials playlist. Now, this will be the one that will actually be enabled once everything's enabled in game normally. So this will be the code name added to the files. We also have the QA time trials right here. We have another QA one right here, except without like the QA name. It's kind of like the normal time trial one if it had released right now, but specifically for their testing phases, you know, just to kind of have it in a normal playlist that doesn't look too unfinished or professional, whatever you want to call it. And then we have perf time trials. Now this is a performance test version to make sure that whenever you actually go into this experience, you're not going to have a laggy, situation with it. The main playlist ID was actually created November 2nd. However, all the testing ones for it were around July 18th of this year. So it is something that they've continued to test and perfect over the years. And, as they continue to evolve it over time, that they have actual modes and stuff released for us. So, they have been working on time trials, and that is one of the main features releasing that will be pretty interesting to see. And I'll definitely be competing to try getting the fastest time possible. Now, next up, we have to talk about the ranked info for Delmar, which this actually uses an octagon symbol. So if you're curious about, what this symbol was, this is for ranked, right? I might have accidentally in the thumbnail switched the names around and stuff because star feels more ranked to me than octagon, but this is the ranked icon. Now, in terms of the actual information, we have two modes here. We have the QA testing ranked competitive mode, and then we have the expert tracks mode. Now, both of these kind of have their own areas and, their own maps being used, but this was made around November 2nd. Now, this is the one that will be enabled in game once it officially releases, and then the test one was around June 27th of this year, so they've been testing it for a while, right? Now, in terms of how the ranking system works, it uses the same bronze to unreal tier system that Zero Build and Battle Royale ranked currently uses, and it has two different sections of maps. We have the normal maps, which is Jackrabbit, Rally, Facade, Infinity, Jumper, and Ouroboros, and then we also have expert maps, which are Sweet Jumps, Asan Circuit, Turbine, and Driftmania Easy 3, which makes me think that the expert maps are going to be more difficult maps to actually, get through, right? They're going to have more obstacles or something that could cause you to crash your vehicle more often, explode, anything like that, and it would make sense to, kind of have this different skill rating for certain maps. So imagine if you get to the higher tiers, right? Like when you're in bronze or whatever, you get some easier maps to play, but as you go through the tiers and you get higher up, you're actually going to be competing in harder and harder maps that make it a lot more of a skill ceiling or whatever, where you have to continuously improve to prove that you are the rank you want to be, instead of just being, all the way in those bronze maps that you had mastered very early on. Next up, however, we have to talk about the miscellaneous info. This is a lot, and I mean a lot of IDs, but I'll kind of break it down for you guys. So the first set of IDs we have right here are different tutorials. We have the beginner tutorial, the advanced tutorial, which is apparently archived right now, and then the full tutorial. To explain the difference of this, beginner is kind of like, the easy tutorial for you to do or whatever. Advanced is, of course, the advanced one, and then full tutorial, which is called seamless tutorial as well, is basically the beginner tutorial and the advanced tutorial combined together. So it's like you're going from the beginner stages to the advanced stages of that tutorial from one playlist instead of having two separate ones for it, right? Instead of having to flip-flop between the two, you just have one playlist specifically for it that you have to focus on. Now, we also have this new user experience, bronze tracks, which may go into the whole entire ranking system later, where when you're in bronze, you have a specific set of tracks, but for the bronze rank and everything else. Now, to explain what new user experience is, such as, what it's called down here, which is Nux, this is making sure that when a new user is actually playing in the racing mode for the first time, they're not going to get the insanely difficult maps or anything else, right? They're going to have a slow increase over time to the harder and harder maps, so it's going to kind of throw you in at an easier pace, be like, hey, here's some maps that are more for the new player style, and then as you continue playing it, as you get your skills honed and everything and start learning how to do that mode, they'll increase the actual difficulty of the levels you're playing. This has the jumper map actually enabled in it, but it also has bronze tracks 1 through 10 with three different number 9 bronze tracks. We have number 9 drifting, number 9 flying, and the normal number 9, right? Which makes me think that, if drifting is going to be a feature, I assume maybe it'll be like Mario Kart where it gives you a boost, because that's how they kind of work with the normal vehicles in game right now. But also the flying feature makes me wonder if it's even more like Mario Kart, where whenever you jump off a certain ramp, you kind of like glide downwards. It makes me wonder if we're going to be having some type of thing like that in this mode, or maybe we'll even have planes enabled at certain sections, right? Like imagine if it's like GTA where you go to a certain point and it flips from your vehicle being a normal vehicle to you being in a jet or something like that. Down here we have some playtest areas. Now this recalls the different like playable maps and everything. For this one we have Sidewinder, Rally, Turbine, Driftmania Easy 3, Snap, and Apollo. For the other playlist down here, we only have 3 maps, being Jumper, Sweet Jumps, and Olympus, which makes it seem like little like jumps or ramps are going to play a focus in the future. Down below it, we go to like some specific maps, right? Like all of these are specific different like playable sections for the maps available in the mode, and these are all kind of in the unranked category. Now if we go to Keystone maps, we have the main maps they want to keep a focus on, being Ouroboros, Sweet Jumps, Jumper, Sidewinder, and Olympus. this. For the QA racing maps, this is just kind of like them testing all of the different maps and everything. We have Ouroboros, Sweet Jumps, Jumper, Sidewinder, Olympus, Rally, Driftmania Easy 3, Snap, Apollo, Turbine, and Riviera. So, you know, we have a ton of maps actually being worked on here that you'll be able to actually play through once they eventually, you know, go through all those things. But we also have a level design playtest. Now, what this is people actually going into the actual levels that are being made and playtesting the designs to make sure that they're perfect for when we actually experience it, so that we don't get any broken maps with random gaps into the void or anything like that. And in terms of the maps we're actually going to be getting that, you know, are currently being playtested specifically for the level design, we have Ouroboros, Jumper, Sweet Jumps, Sidewinder, Olympus, Rally, Turbine, Snap, Driftmania, Easy 3, Apollo, and Riviera. And then, of course, down here, these three sections are actually performance test maps. So we have the core tracks, you know, being the main focus tracks for when the mode eventually releases, being Ouroboros, Sidewinder, and Olympus. These are going to be the main three. You're going to see them advertising once everything comes out based on the fact that this is the core maps. For rotations, we have Driftmania, Easy 3, Apollo, and Snap, which makes me wonder if this is going to be something where they're going to either be performance testing the rotation of, you know, switching between maps, or if these are going to be maps that will be enabled or disabled during the time that this racing mode's available, so that you're not getting all three of these at once, right? It's like, oh, this map is enabled for this week, Apollo's enabled for the next week, instead of just kind of throwing you in with all of the maps enabled. And then we have Max Map, which is Ouroboros, which makes me think that Ouroboros is going to be the biggest map out of all the different maps enabled for this racing mode once it releases, because it's the only map in there, and max, you know, you think of big things, you think of the maximum of something, so it is interesting to see that being worked on. And then finally down here we have Community Racing, which includes Cruise, Ouroboros, Infinity, Facade, Jumper, Jackrabbit, and Rally. Now I'm kind of confused what Community Racing is, but it does have the code name of Easy Rider, which we've had some leaks on before. So what I think it might mean is, you know, maybe these maps are made by the community who worked on, you know, UEFN maps or creative maps or whatever else. Maybe these specific set of maps right here aren't made by Epic Games officially, but they're endorsed and sponsored by other creators out there who are making these maps for this upcoming mode. And then in terms of the actual set mode IDs we have right here, we have Ranked, which is for quality assurance testing. We have performance testing, of course. We have the core playlist right here. Both of these are kind of like the main playlist you'll actually be queuing into. We have the tutorials playlist. We have the primary playlist, which is kind of like the primary modes that they're currently working on. The level design playlist, of course. The quality assurance playlist, once again, that is not in the ranked category. And then the new user experience. So, you know, in terms of the main things you would have to focus on, these four right here are kind of like the main area. And even at, you know, that area, it's kind of like these two are the main ones you would want to focus on. But they have been working a lot on this racing mode, right? There have been so many leaks of it, and I mean, even right now, we have a ton of playlist IDs that aren't even being used by Epic Games that are for QA testing, right? You know, we have Challenge 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which challenges specifically for time trials, and then we have the main playlist ID for ranked mode in Del Mar, which is the racing mode, once it officially releases, currently being unused because ranked mode isn't out yet. The racing mode isn't here yet, but in terms of everything going on, we have a ton of stuff happening, right? There is a ton of leaks and everything, and I mean, even just knowing that this has been worked on since October 2022 is major news. So with that said, I hope you champs and champions enjoyed this full recap of everything going on with Fortnite's racing mode. All of the modes, all of the IDs, everything you need to know here in one single video, and I would love to hear in the comments down below, based on all this information I provided, you know, the special notes and everything that you might not have heard anywhere else. What do you think about this upcoming mode? Are you excited for it? Do you think that this right here is the reason that Chapter 4 has kind of been lackluster in some ways, according to some people? And what else are your thoughts on this, right? Are you hoping that it's successful when it releases, or do you think it will meet the same fate of other modes that Epic Games has released before, such as Imposters, where it eventually just kind of gets worse and worse over time, you know, they stop updating it, it gets glitchier and glitchier, until they decide to completely can it and remove it from the game files. But until next time, hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's YouTube video. Hope it got you excited for things happening in the land of Fortnite, especially for that racing mode, and I think it's a lot nicer just to have everything combined in one single topic for you guys. And with that said, I'll catch you champs and champions later with another video. Peace out.